Welcome to the official podcast of DogsDaily.com, a Sports Illustrated channel.
Gets to the edge. Sonny Michel will send the Dogs home to the championship game.
If you're looking for the latest Georgia Bulldog news in football, basketball, baseball, and recruiting, then you're in the right place.
Anthony Edwards with the jam. Are you kidding me?
Hosted by Dogs Daily writers Jeremiah Stoddard, Kyle Funderburk, and Jonathan Williams.
Here's a pitch. Hit high out into right center with some carry. It's got a chance. This ball is out of here. Tucker Bradley has won it.
Just sit back, relax, and prepare yourself for these hot takes you're about to listen to.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Classic City Sports. As always, Jeremiah Stoddard, along with my buddy Jonathan Williams. I have a fun episode coming up for you today. As you can see with the title of it, it is about Arch Manning originally on this. That's what we're going to start with on the comments or on our topic tonight. And there's just a lot of questions about where he's going to go. Some stuff came out today or yesterday about his top schools and all kinds of speculation about what's going on there. Then we got some fun topics and stuff we want to cover today as well. One thing we're bringing back tonight that we used to do a lot last off season, and it's Takin season, which is where we bring all of the comments that we found on social media sent to us by other people or things we've come across ourselves, where we just basically get to sit back and laugh at comments made by rival fans that are so off base. And we just kind of sit back and laugh, especially now. This one's going to be fun because it's the natty edition of it, right? Yeah. Like our girl, the librarian out here, who bookmarks everything. She's got us ready to go with a couple things, and she definitely had some stuff saved from after the national championship game where she went back and commented on people's stuff. And it's been really fun to go back and read some of this stuff, and we're excited to kind of talk about it, bring it to you guys. And it's, like I said, one of our favorite segments that we've done. And then a segment that we did last week, we're bringing back this week again, and it's called King of the Hill, where we're going to bring, a topic that we are passionate about. I guess a hill that we would die on is what we called it. And this one's food edition, right? So we're going to be talking about fast food, specifically fries. So that should be fun, right? If you were on Twitter today and you listened to Brooks Austin, Jonathan Williams, and a bunch of other people on there in the Twitter space, they talked about this topic on there. The funny thing is it's a spoiler. If you listened to it earlier, you already know what Jonathan's going to say on there. And unfortunately,
I do have one take that I didn't disclose to the Twitter space that I specifically wanted to save for the podcast.
Good.
So
you saved one.
You may have heard my original take, but there's still another layer that I want to unfold when we get to that topic. So you got to stay till the end to find out, because it's a hot one, I have a feeling.
All right. I'm excited to hear how that goes later on. But we'll go ahead and jump straight into it, right? So the whole beginning of the show we want to start with is Arch Manning, right? So he came out with a list of his, 6 schools, was it?
I think it's 6 right now.
And it was released to the media, which, if you've been following the stuff with Arch Manning, everything is sent out when they're wanting something to come out. There's not a bunch of stuff just circulating about Arch Manning and all his stuff. This family's done this before. Yeah. This family knows how it works. They're pros at it. They're not doing anything. Nothing's coming out that they don't want to be out there. So you see the list come out. And then there was speculation about a top 2 already out of that 6 and stuff like that everybody's talked about, which don't know who those are necessarily. It's just being mentioned out there. But as you can imagine, Georgia is one of those schools. Georgia has great ties in different areas with this. You saw last year at one of the games, I don't remember which home game it was, but even the Spike Squad literally painted up their back and said, "We want Archie," or Arch Manning.
I actually had one of the guys from the Discord bring a poster into one of the games that said Arch to Athens or something along the lines of that. So, it's been all over. The UJ student section has been invested in it. Everybody's invested in it because everybody wants a Manning at their campus. They want to be the ones that continue the Manning legacy. So,
think about it. Everyone wants to play with them too.
Well, yeah. It really reminds me of kind of what you're seeing with LeBron James right now and his son. Both of his sons are at Sierra Canyon right now.
Yeah.
And you don't really hear too much talk about where they're going to go play college ball because there's so many options for high school basketball players now where you can go to the G League, you can kind of start your process there, or you can even go play overseas like LaMelo Ball did, and then you can end up getting drafted a year or two later. But I mean, there's talk about, will LeBron James get to play with his son? And it's that type of legacy. Like you're talking about one of the best to ever do it in the sport. And now it's the guy he's going to be passing the torch to. And that's who you have in Arch Manning. It's the passing of the torch to the next Manning, the up and coming Manning, to play in college and then to even play in the NFL if he's able to accomplish that. And so rightfully so, there's a lot of publicity around it. There's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of things that are like, where's he going to go? There's even been reports saying that his list is now cut down to 2. And but the thing is that nobody knows. Nobody really knows, and you're not going to know until he makes his commitment, just because that's the type of personnel that you're dealing with right now. This is a very hush-hush type of situation. You don't hear too much information leaked out. Like, who, like his top 6 right now. You know that Georgia's in it. Texas is in it. Alabama's in it. There's a few other schools that are in the mix as well. But all in all, you really just have no idea what is going to happen. So, see, there you go. Another UGA student showing that they want Arch in
We
Athens.
want Arch too. Don't worry. I promise.
So,
but that leads to the other side of it, right? So you and I were kind of talking about this prior to the show starting. When you're looking at Arch Manning, who is an incredible quarterback, right?
Yeah.
Like he's, for obvious reasons, that he's got these big schools like Georgia and Alabama and Texas and all these other places out there that have a chance. At least that's what the public sees, is they have a chance. I'm sure, like you said, there's the 2. Don't know who those 2 are. So the other 4 really don't have a chance right now, potentially, which, once again, we don't have the list of it. But it brings up the question, from the Georgia perspective, right? Does it make sense for Arch Manning to come to Georgia? And the reason I phrase it like that, does it make sense, is because this quarterback room right now, as it stands, because on this show, we don't put a kid in the transfer portal before they actually put themselves in the transfer portal. So as of now, we're going to count for the people on this roster continuing to be on the roster when Arch Manning walks in the door, right? So that means I'm going by seniority in this when I say it too, so no other particular, numbering of this. You've got Carson Beck, you got Brock Vandegrift, Gunnar Stockton, and then you have Arch Manning, right? At that point, it is an extremely crowded room for Arch Manning to walk into. And one thing we've learned so far about Todd Monken and about Kirby Smart is seniority typically is going to get the first crack at it for multiple reasons. One, experience in the league, time in the system, understanding what's going on, and really having time to grow into that role to be able to play in a game like an SEC game and be competitive and put your team in a position to win a national championship. That's always the goal. So you've got to think in that particular situation, Carson Beck might have the edge because of the experience. Everybody counts him out. Everyone counts like he's going to transfer, which is I disagree with right now because he's not done that so far. And at this point, that means he's at least – he knows Stetson's coming back. He hasn't transferred, which means he's here for spring practice at this point, and he clearly does not intend to transfer right now. That's where we're at. So right now, to me, I feel like he would be the next guy in line, especially because all through last year, or preseason, spring ball, all that stuff, up until the UAB game last year, he was considered the number 2 guy behind JT Daniels, which means he was technically even above Stetson Bennett, which in this case tells me also he might not be, unable to take out Stetson Bennett this year specifically. So we don't know, what's going to play out there. So right now I'm going to say he's staying. And at that point, you got to count him as the next guy up, which means then you got to look at, Brock Vandegrift and Gunnar Stockton also being the next guys up in front, all of these guys in front of Arch Manning. That's not saying that Arch Manning can't come in and just blow everybody away. But is it a situation that you see Arch Manning looking at and going, that's an ideal situation for me to walk into? That's where I'm at.
I think it's hard to kind of know what Arch Manning would want to go into college. Is he a type of guy that wants to come into college and play right away? Possibly. But you also have to consider that of the people that are like talking into his ear constantly. For all we know, maybe Peyton and Eli and Cooper and whoever else could be saying like, hey, it's probably the best choice for you to go somewhere where you can kind of take things a little slow, get developed into a system, and make sure you go somewhere where you know that you can be developed into the NFL and you have a shot at going into the NFL, and find you a place that you feel comfortable in, find you a coaching staff that you're confident in, and just find a place that you feel like is home to you. I think those are all things that every player considers when they're talking about colleges that they want to go to and they're pursuing. So it all just depends on what encompasses his recruitment process and his thought process on what he's deciding between when it comes to college. Maybe it just boils down to who's got the best OC, who's got the best offense that fits for me. Maybe that's a Steve Sarkisian out in Texas. I mean, he was a heck of an OC in Alabama, and he's the head coach at Texas. Maybe that's who he wants to go follow. Maybe he wants to follow and go learn under the GOAT in Alabama under Nick Saban. I mean, every quarterback that goes through there seems to be going to the NFL nowadays. They got multiple Heisman winners now in recent years. Or sorry, Mac Jones was not a Heisman winner, but Bryce Young was.
One quarterback has ever won the Heisman.
But Mac Jones came close.
Or at Bama, which is surprising to me. Mac Jones was right there.
Yes,
had Devontae Smith not had the best receiving season that we've seen in college football, Mac Jones would have won it.
Yeah. So they've had a good string of quarterbacks there. Maybe he wants to go there. Or maybe he wants to go with Kirby Smart, and he wants to go over there with people that he's comfortable with. He wants to continue the SEC legacy in Athens, a great college town and a program that just is coming off a national title. So they're kind of they're stamping their selves into the conversation of being consistently in the national title conversation. And so maybe that's what he wants to pursue. Maybe that's it. All just boils down to that. And again, we're not going to know what Arch Manning is thinking. We're not going to know how he feels about each college. No. All you're going to know is that he's going to make his decision sooner rather than later, probably. I believe he made a comment last year that kind of insinuated that he would want to pick a school before his high school football season started.
I remember that.
So that way he wouldn't have to deal with recruiting during his high school football season. He could just kind of enjoy it and enjoy his senior season with his teammates and do that. So, I mean, it's probably coming within the next 5 or so months.
That tells me, you got about July, latest probably August.
Yeah.
Maybe right before his season starts or his school year starts. So maybe August, early August, you might find out then. Because I remember hearing the same thing, and it makes sense, and I can respect that. The kid wants to be a high school senior. He wants to get all of his visits out of the way, which he's, did all that stuff during the season. He came to Georgia, all that cool stuff this past year. So he did all of that kind of stuff this season. He'll continue to go visit places, do little things like that across the summer while he's doing his recruiting. But then he gets to shut it down and actually be a high school student and play his senior season with his guys and get ready for the next level afterwards, wherever he's going to go. He doesn't have to deal with the back and forth talking to different coaches and all the drama that goes along with it. But I think I'm going to touch on something that you said a second ago, where he's got guys in his camp that have been around this game for so long. Two quarterbacks in his family that have been in the NFL for a decade, more than a decade each, and won Super Bowls and been around this so long.
I mean, one of them is literally considered one of the greatest
to
the greatest to ever do it in many's eyes.
So. And the other one won 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty good family of quarterbacks, and they both know the game very well. If you've watched any of the ESPN2 stuff where they've called the games or kind of sat there and talked, the guys know the game so well. And so they're sitting here giving him all kinds of advice. So you might be very right with this. If he comes to a place with Georgia, like a place like Georgia that has the quarterback room that they have right now or are going to have at that point, he's being told, and he's probably expecting to not play for a season or two. I think at that point that you got to expect him to sit. Yeah. I think he's going to come. Now he'll compete. I think he's going to come in and compete, and if he can win it, he'll win it. But I think he's going to have people in his ear saying, if you're going to a school like Georgia with the quarterback room like that, it's a good thing for you to sit back and learn, because as we saw with guys like Mac Jones, you don't have to play 4 years, 3 years in college as a quarterback to be able to be a first-round draft pick or a potential Heisman candidate. If you play on this is something we talked about before the show as well. If you play on a team at a high enough caliber, all you need is one season as a quarterback. Mm-hmm. You really do. And so he might be planning to come and play for 1 or 2 seasons at Georgia after he sits for a year or two to get ready to play. And like you said, it depends on who that offensive coordinator is, that quarterback coach, and that, that where he's coming to, if it's worth it for him kind of thing. Right now, Georgia has Todd Monken. You got to expect Todd Monken may not be here. He might be here when Arch gets here. He might not be here when Arch actually touches the field at that point. If you look at it, because you got to think, how long can you possibly hold on to Todd Monken? He's a tough guy to hold on to.
You're already seeing him kind of test the waters already. There was a lot of talk, and it still possibly could happen. But I mean, as each day goes by, I think it decreases the chance that Monken leaves UGA. But, I mean, there was talk that he was going to the NFL this offseason. So it's bound to happen, I think. It's pretty obvious that Monken wants to be back in the NFL, and who could blame him? There's a lot less stress on an offensive coordinator in the NFL than there is an offensive coordinator in college football. We've touched on that. In regards to any coaching position in college football right now, there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of time, and there's a lot of effort that you have to put in to your position, regardless of who you are, regardless of how much money you make. You have to put in a lot of time and effort to manage your roster, manage your players, recruiting, anything. Whereas in the NFL, you really don't have to do that. You're X's and O's. That's it. Talk to your players, get to know your offensive guys, and that's it. You're not out there having to go make a visit to your scouts or to the players that you're scouting or anything like that. It's just, hey, we want them, draft them. It's simple as that. So it'll be interesting, and I think it's kind of telling if you've been paying attention to anything, or if you're subscribed to Brooks Austin's Patreon, you would know this about who is involved with Arch Manning's recruitment process at UGA. It's kind of telling of what UGA is kind of feeling on that situation as well. Not going to say any specific names. If you want that information, you can go pay $10 to Brooks Austin's Patreon, and you can subscribe to that and get tons of information on anything, more than just Arch Manning. But so
absolutely worth every dollar, by the way.
Yeah. So
absolutely.
So it really just depends. It's really interesting to see how this will develop. It'll be interesting to see what his decision comes down to. But at the end of the day, another good thing is that with Arch Manning probably making his decision early or later in the summer, it gives Georgia time also to snag another quarterback as well in the recruiting class. Ones that, they've already been talking to and that they've been building relationships with other names, and you're not going to miss out on someone in this class, which it may not be the end of the world if UJ missed out on a quarterback this year. We just talked about how stacked they are in that roster right now. So, I mean, it wouldn't be the end of the world, but it gives you time to kind of rebound off of that. And there are a lot of other really, really good quarterbacks in this class. There have been some that other people have said they think are better than Arch Manning, surprisingly. So, I mean,
I think it's one of those years that like it's Arch Manning or bust at quarterback. Not saying that there's not good guys out there, but as far as like what you might see Georgia go after because of that, like this is a personal opinion of mine, because when you look at the quarterback room the way that it is, what we know about Kirby is he always goes after the best quarterback in the class.
Absolutely.
And he's gotten it several times at this point. Like when you look at it, or guys that are right there at the top of the list, if it's not the number one guy. So he goes out and gets these incredible quarterbacks every year, it seems, at this point. So I feel like if he were to miss on Arch Manning, I don't think he's going to just settle to go for somebody he doesn't necessarily think, unless you're already hearing like those names surface or something like that. You know what I mean? I don't think he's just going to go, all right, well, we need a quarterback, so we're going to go get one, because you don't need a quarterback in the 2023 class. You really don't, because I just told you about the other three guys that are on that roster. You could skip a year and get an elite quarterback the following year if you really want to create a little bit of class separation, to give the guy, less sitting time if you really want to. So I do think that could be how it plays out. It's either you go for, Arch, you don't get him, it's okay. We move on. We have great quarterbacks in the quarterback room right now, and we'll go get the next big guy the following year.
I think another reason, though, why people are kind of like Arch Manning or bust is just because that name recruits itself. Yeah. Any wide receiver, any offensive player, heck, any defensive player. If Arch Manning is coming to your campus, that probably bumps up your chances of landing a lot of other players, because there's a lot of wide receivers that would want to come play with a Manning. There's a lot of running backs, offensive linemen, etc. So I think that's a big reason why, and for good reason. Of course, if you can get any player that can help you recruit anybody else, of course you would like to get that player. But then again, that comes with the territory as well, is that you have a Manning on campus. You already see the amount of publicity he's getting now, and he's not even on a college campus. So can you imagine what it's going to be like when he is on campus? And then again, we know how quarterback situations go at the University of Georgia. If he's not starting by year one, you're going to have people saying, well, Kirby's mismanaging the quarterback position. He's not doing this right. We have a freaking Manning on our roster.
Year one, I promise.
We have a freaking Manning on our roster. He's wasting talent, but he's going to transfer, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, it comes with the territory. But then again, it's Kirby Smart. And if anybody has learned how to deal with that type of territory and learn how to block out the nonsense that's coming from the outside, it's Kirby Smart. And if there's anybody that keeps stuff close to the vest, and he knows how to keep things quiet, and he knows how to keep people out of his information and out of like his personal stuff with the football team, it's Kirby Smart. And so there's nothing to worry about there. But I mean, it is something that you have to take into account when talking about someone that has those type of family ties with him and that type of legacy that he is going to be trying to continue. So
the name alone is worth trying to get him so much. Even he's a good quarterback, and he will play very well when if he comes to Georgia, when he steps on the field, he will play well. He'll be a good quarterback to have. but the name alone helps in the recruiting side and every bit of it, man.
Can you imagine the NIL deals that are going to happen when Arch
So
Manning
many.
gets into college? It is going to be absolutely ridiculous. Every company is going to be trying to get Arch Manning on their hands and try and get some type of, sponsorship.
Man's going to
with
make
him.
so much. Quinn Ewers made so much money, like immediately.
With
Can you imagine,
kombucha.
Can you imagine how much the next guys? Oh, but that's where Ewers went to Texas, didn't he?
He's at Texas now, yeah.
So this does compete with what we talked about earlier. You and I were kind of thinking that maybe Texas is a good spot because if he wants to get on the field right away,
yeah,
there's still Quinn Ewers right there.
Yeah, so that's the thing is that especially with the transfer portal, you just don't know. You really don't know what rosters are going to look like from a year from now. So
yeah, because after next season, because he's obviously like 2023 class, which means obviously you don't have him this season.
Yeah,
there's going to be more quarterback movement from the time he signs his letter of intent. If he signs, I assume he's going to sign in December because if he's going to announce his commitment and lock it down come July or August, he'll sign in December. Transfer portal at quarterback is going to really spin up come January or late December and stuff like that. So
just look at
don't know.
Take Oklahoma for example.
Yeah.
This time last year, people were like, they got Spencer Rattler and they have Caleb Williams. Now they have neither. That quarterback room has been completely cleaned out. Lincoln Riley isn't even there. And both of those quarterbacks are playing for different schools now. So it just tells you how quickly things can change in regards to any position and how quickly players move. At one point, you could just think too, Gunnar Stockton was committed to South Carolina for a while. If he'd stuck with that, possibly, he would have been sitting behind or competing against a Spencer Rattler, which wouldn't have been expected to begin with. So it
would have changed the scenario that he signed up to go and be like the next guy kind of thing. But then all of a sudden, a guy like Spencer Rattler transfers in. Yeah. And now you have a completely different situation than you originally agreed to go.
Yeah,
so
you really just have no idea what a roster is going to look like. You don't even know what a roster is going to look like in a month from now, honestly, with how hot the transfer portal is. Yeah.
Especially spring. Spring ball is going to, you're going to see
after
late April.
Late
April, early May, it's going to get busy again. Even people from Georgia at that point, because spring ball is a time for them to see where they stand with the team going into fall camp, which means going into the season. When everything shapes out the way it does after the G-Day, scrimmage, at that point you're going to see names from Georgia probably go. You don't know who. I'm not putting anyone specific, but at this point, when the way things work in college football, you're going to see a guy from Georgia transfer come at the end of spring practice. I can almost guarantee it, just because that's the way it works. So quarterbacks in other situations, when they realize they did not win the job, they're going to start looking to go other places potentially where they can feel they can win the job.
Yep.
So it's going to completely reshape rosters everywhere all the time. So it's hard to determine where these guys want to go because they don't know what scenario they're going to actually walk into. You got guys like Kirby Smart that's always looking. He'll look at any player that enters the transfer portal just to see if they might be a fit. He doesn't go after everyone, but he'll look at everyone, no matter who they are or what position they play. So it doesn't matter if you've got the list of quarterbacks we're talking about. If there was, talk about Caleb Williams coming to Georgia, a lot of talk actually, and which I'm sure Kirby Smart and the staff kicked the tires of that one. Went in and looked to see if there was something that might work, and it didn't go the way that it didn't go that way, obviously. So I don't know if that means Georgia just looked at it and was like, we really don't want to go that route right now because we don't need to. I thought it would be a bad idea to add Caleb Williams into this mix of quarterbacks that you currently have. I think it would have been a bad look on the staff, honestly, with all of the recruiting side of it. Like, you're recruiting these high-level guys and that you have now in line to potentially start, and then you're going to go to the transfer portal to get another guy at the same level in my opinion, at the same level as those guys. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it would have been a bad look. So I'm kind of glad they didn't go get Caleb Williams. Now, if he got here and he started, we all would have supported him and been, on board with it. That's how we roll on this show. Whoever the quarterback is who the coaching staff decided to go with. That's what we're going to go with. But it just, you never know how things are going to shape out at this time.
No, you really don't. And so it's just just think about last year with how Georgia was going into the offseason and then how they turned out. I mean, you brought in Darian Kendrick, you brought in Takin Smith, you brought in Eric Gilbert. Those were three guys that would have immediately contributed last year if they were healthy or if they were in the right mental space or if they didn't have other things going on that are more important in life than football. So, I mean, it's obvious Kirby Smart's going to take any opportunity that he can to improve his roster. Doesn't matter what the depth chart looks like. I mean, Georgia was completely fine for the most part at wide receiver that we saw, especially hindsight's 2020, but especially after looking back at the season, there really wasn't a need to bring in another Eric Gilbert, especially considering that he's listed as a tight end. You had Brock Bowers and Darnell Washington. But, I mean, he was a guy that was going to immediately contribute, and you just had George Pickens go down, and that was an opportunity to get a guy like him put on your roster and someone that could really help you out in case you were in dire need of more people at the position. So it'll be interesting. You'll definitely see Georgia dip into the portal. Kirby Smart hasn't gone a single off season yet where he hasn't. So you'll see some type of addition. You just don't know when. Sure. Kendrick wasn't added to the roster until June of last year, which there were.
Look how well that played out too. That's such a late addition. And it was an immediate impact guy.
For him and for UGA, both of them. Yeah. I mean, it helped him raise his draft stock tremendously. And then without Darian Kendrick, I don't know that you're talking about a national title for Georgia. I mean, that's just the truth. The way that
you may not be. You may not. He played extremely well. He played well in the national championship. He played well against Michigan. He played well all season long. There's a couple of balls where that he got beat on, but he made so many more plays to make up for it. It's what he had 2 picks against Michigan. Mm-hmm. I mean, he played very well. Yeah. All season.
And then now you have Takin Smith, who's coming into this next season, who is
I'm excited to see Takin Smith.
That's a big name to have right now, especially with Latavius Burnett left, and then also with Lewis Cine left. So you got some things to figure out, and then also with Darian Kendrick as well, leaving as well. You have some kind of positions to fill that you need on defense, especially in the secondary, and he plugs perfectly right into that. He's a guy that played safety at West Virginia. I don't think he's going to play safety at Georgia. I think he's going to play star.
I think he's a star, but it's really hard to tell how that's about to play out because William Poole really stepped up and he's staying.
That's what spring football is for.
Exactly. But that's where you're going to start seeing. And I don't think Takin Smith transfers. I don't think William Poole transfers. I don't think those guys leave.
You find a place for Takin Smith to be on the field.
They're going to be around, but stuff like that's going to play out, right? And you're going to find out where these guys plug in. I'm extremely excited to watch G-Day because you're going to get to see how some of that stuff works out.
I mean, there's a lot of battles to be had on Georgia's football team this year at a lot of positions. There's a lot of
position, man.
There's a lot of things that are going to have to be figured out.
Middle linebacker.
Yeah. I mean, linebackers in general, edge rushers, defensive line, wide receivers even. Secondary, quarterbacks.
I was thinking about that earlier because I was listening to the space today, and Brooks was talking about it. And then now just a minute ago, you were talking about like Eric Gilbert and stuff. The wide receiver room is going to be competitive this year, man. It is going to be cutthroat because everybody from last year is still here. Guys that weren't healthy last year are going to be healthy this year. It's going to be crazy, right? Like Eric Gilbert's back with the team, and he's listed as a tight end, but even when he was coming to Georgia, there was so much talk about him being basically an X receiver.
He's what Brock Bowers kind of is.
Yeah,
put him anywhere you want. He'll be successful.
You can literally line him up wherever you want to do it. So they're going to take reps from wide receivers potentially. It's going to be such a cutthroat battle for them at that position.
Offensive line's got some holes that they got to figure out who's going to compete for that.
Offensive line is an interesting one to watch.
I mean, all in all, spring
where you might see somebody transfer.
Probably.
Because somebody's going to win jobs. I'm not naming names, and I'm not even naming a specific position. I'm just going to leave it at the offensive line because we've talked about it on here before. There's questions at certain positions on that offensive line that you go, all right, this guy versus this guy. If one of them doesn't win the job, you do expect I could see somebody on the offensive line transferring from Georgia.
Yeah, I mean,
just because at this point you don't have much other things you can do, and unless you just convince one specific guy, or two guys that hey, give them one more year, and then next year is your year. I mean, it's going to be a hard thing to convince a guy at this point that might have been sitting for a couple seasons already.
You just got a lot of bodies that they up front, so you got a lot of players that are going to be competing, got a lot of reps to be had for a lot of players, but that's a good thing to have as well because you got a lot of options. You got a lot of players that you can evaluate. You can plug them in at different positions. You can kind of see how they shake up, and you can really put together your best offensive line unit completely and just really get things figured out. Because while the offensive line did play pretty solid for the most part last season, it was definitely probably the weakest point of the offense last year. So that'll probably be one of the bigger strengths next year, if I had to guess. There's a lot of good players, a lot of really, really, really good players that will be coming back for the offensive line this year and are ready to compete.
Absolutely.
But we keep talking about next year, and so I think that kind of segues us.
Let's do it.
Wow, I'm stumbling
all over into our next segment.
Thank you for doing that. That's why you have a co-host, so he can help you out when you struggle with words, because English is hard for us, even though we've been speaking it for our entire life. But so we're going into talking season, and talking season usually always has to go usually centers around next year or next season or even the next 2 years. So it's always talking about next year, what's going to happen. But then we're also going to bring back some old ones, some really, really good ones that came from last year before last year's season. because, Georgia won the national title. So you knew that there had to be some tweets that were worth digging up, which Jeremiah is doing for us right now. He's going to pull those up for us so we can go down the list and we can start talking about those, kind of evaluating them. And I believe he has the first one pulled up right now. So Jeremiah, if you want to go ahead and read that one off for
I'm going
us.
to start with the first one. And the first one that we've got is we won't, once again on this one, this segment, unless it's a blue check name, we won't say the name of the person that tweeted it, because that's just, if they're a blue check and verified, then you can take.
We don't want to send the hounds on these people. We just want to have a good laugh at their foolishness.
Few of you guys. But the first one, it comes from Florida. The segment's going to have at least one member of the Florida Twitter space area that we're going to have to talk about, right? And the original tweet was from 24/7, and it's just grading the new college football coaching staffs. At the top of the list is Florida with an A+. Then you've got Oklahoma with an A, Oregon with an A, LSU with an A, Texas Tech with an A, Georgia Southern A-, USC B+, SMU B+, Colorado State B+, Notre Dame with a B. So to put this in perspective, before I even get to the comment that they made, these are coaching staffs based on people that had to refill coaching positions. So it doesn't include your Alabama, your Georgia, and teams like that, even Clemson, that have coaching staffs that have been established. These are new coaching staffs that they're grading, right? The comment that the Florida fan decided to make was, we were winning it all in 2023. Why? Because they gave you an A+?
Before we even talk about that, though, how is Lincoln Riley not number one on that list? I mean, if you're USC...
I guess they're looking at the whole staff. So they're number 2, so they're looking at the staff. Because remember, there's the elite extra coaches and stuff, all the massive coaching staff that Florida's got.
The game-changing coordinator. So if we're looking at it from that perspective, I mean, when you hire 100 people onto your staff, I guess you better be freaking A+ on the list, because good Lord, if you're adding that much into the... But still, I mean, the fact that USC was able to go out and get Lincoln Riley, who is probably a top 5 head coach in college football right now, I'd say that should probably be at the number 1 list alone, just off of that hire by itself. I would not classify Billy Napier as an A+ hire, in my opinion. I think he's a solid hire. I think he's a
good hire.
I think
potentially we'll see.
Yeah, I think it was a good choice for Florida. It's a kind of a guy that's on the up and coming, a guy that's is going to be hungry to have success, because this is a guy that's trying to build a resume for himself. He's trying to stamp his name along with the best in the SEC. So I think you have that aspect going for you, something that Dan Mullen did not have going for him. He did not have the hunger and drive that someone like Billy Napier would have. That's another
one that you go with what you were saying earlier about even Todd Monken, where it's a different thing in college, where you're recruiting and you're having to do all this stuff and all of the roster management stuff that you have to do in college versus there was so much speculation about a guy, like Dan Mullen going back to, he was looking for an NFL job. It's not for everybody. College football coaching is not the same as coaching at other levels and stuff like that with roster management.
And that's why you're seeing so many guys dip out of college football right now. That's why you're seeing so many people try and make the jump to the NFL. But so the comment said that they were going to win in 2023?
Winning it all
in 2023. Okay.
All of it. The national championship with the first-year head coach at your program.
I think Florida is quite the rebuild right now, in my opinion. They lost a lot on their roster. They really didn't have
a new coaching staff entirely.
They got Kamari Wilson, which is legit. That was a legit flip for them.
Yes, it was.
That was huge for them to get Kamari Wilson, who was committed to Georgia. I mean, that's who if you had a name that everybody felt like they were 100% confident in signing with UGA on National Signing Day, it was Kamari Wilson. So for them to take him away from UGA was huge for them. But then again, when the official National Signing Day came in February, the one big target that they had on their board for that day did not sign with them. And they really didn't get any other big names to come to them either. And a lot of their roster has been filled with guys that played for Billy Napier for the Raging Cajuns. And so, I mean, that's a lower tier college football program. That's not SEC level football. So you're filling that with a lot of players that isn't necessarily quite the tier of a Georgia or an Alabama or even a Texas A&M at this point. So to say you're going to have that quick of a rebound, I think it's just foolish. It's ignorant, and you just got to understand that it's
just ignorant, man.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that Florida won't be competitive program in a couple seasons. I'm saying that this year, to say that with the brand new coaching staff, the turnover that you've had in your roster, and coming off of last season, that you had a very bad season for a Florida program. And you're going to sit here and say that you're going to flip that switch so fast. to be a national championship team the very next season, that's just asinine. That's a ridiculous thing to think.
It's a huge ask of Billy Napier. So I think if you're a Florida fan, I think you just need to kind of take some patience with this one. Yeah. Understand that you probably do have a good hire in Billy Napier, and I think that he will do some good things at the University of Florida. I think he'll be able to at least take that program, kind of get them back on the tracks, lead them back into the right direction. He may not be the guy that leads them to the top of the mountain necessarily, but I think he will be a guy that will lead them onto the where they want to be in regards to a program, kind of getting them to be a more consistent program, kind of back where they were in the later of the 2000s and whatnot. So I think that's kind of the perspective Florida fans should take. That's just from an outsider's perspective, just kind of from me looking on the roster and kind of seeing the situation down in Florida. I think you got a lot of good things going for you, but then again, it's a process and it's going to take some time.
You got to get the train rolling. Even with Kirby Smart, when he came to Georgia, I sat here saying that you got to give him. I said his fifth year is maybe, going fifth year, sixth year is when you really had to look at him to have his entire program set up the way that he wants it. And I even said back then when I was talking to people about it, that Georgia going to a national championship in 2017, that season was so far ahead of schedule that it kind of skewed fans' view of things at first.
Oh, absolutely.
And so it kind of messed up that timeline because everybody thought they should be there right away. And so then the next couple seasons when it kind of backstepped a little bit, it was a surprise to a lot of people. But you really need to give him 4 years, 5 years. And the reason I say that is because think about it. Recruiting, you got to build the entire roster has to be his roster.
I would say
it's going to take a few years to get that.
I would say 3 full recruiting cycles. Once you hit that mark, I think that's kind of where you start to see where you stand with this person as your head coach.
That's fair, especially now with the transfer portal.
Full recruiting cycle. So I wouldn't count this year for Billy Napier. Yeah. Don't count this year for Billy Napier. So the next 3. So you got 23, 24, and 25 recruiting classes that you've got to count for it. But I think that's fair too because you got to count in the transfer portal being in there where you can plug and play a guy. Yeah, that's true too.
At an elite level at a position. If you have a deficiency like Georgia had last year at defensive back, and you saw players just get plugged in really quickly like that from the transfer portal to be able to manage that's where you're at this point.
I mean, look at what Mel Tucker did at Michigan State. He completely rebuilt his roster off of the transfer portal. I think he took 22 total guys out of the transfer portal. And I mean, it got him inside the top 10 for a good while this year. So he was successful.
5 almost. Wasn't he in the top?
Yeah, he was in the top 5 for
he was like number 3 at one point.
Yeah, so he was able to he made success out of that. Now it's a matter of, okay, you got to go to the portal, but that's not necessarily building your roster for longevity. So now he's got to find a way to sustain that success. But I mean, to his credit, he got a big payday as a result of it. He got a huge check in the mail from Michigan State just off of this one season. So maybe Billy Napier can do that at Florida. He can just put together one huge season with them and he can cash in that check. But
one thing he did at his previous school, right, was pull people from the transfer portal.
He did a good job of that.
He did a great job at that. But he was also at a different level with the Raging Cajuns, that he was getting people that were coming from big rosters, at places where they weren't able to crack. They just wanted to play somewhere. So he was able to scoop it. It's a little different when you're in the SEC and trying to get guys. Like, you can't get SEC level players that just leave SEC schools to go to somewhere like, the Raging Cajuns. At this point, you've got to – it's a little bit more difficult. It is. It's a little bit more difficult to just build your roster based on transfer portal guys. It doesn't work the same way. Because if they're good enough to go play at somewhere like Florida, that means teams like Georgia, Alabama, and all these other big names are also interested in that player that you now have to compete with on that side of it.
Mm. What a great name, by the way. Raging Cajuns.
Raging Cajuns.
That's got to be top 3 college football mascots. Like, it just rolls off the tongue good. Well. It just sounds really, really cool. I would buy their merch, honestly. That'd be. I would rock some Raging Cajun merch. So we'll move on to the next one now. Kind of start going through these quicker. Is this the one is this the next one?
Yeah, South Carolina one.
I'll go ahead and read it then.
This one, also the date on this one's important.
So this one, we don't know the fan of this. We can kind of assume based off the tweet, but the person is wearing a Michigan State hat in the picture. So we'll see. But it says Georgia better win a natty this year because next year the East runs through Columbia, South Carolina. This year, talking as in the year that UGA just completed winning a national title. So they completed that. They accomplished that goal. But now they're saying that it's a good thing that they did because the East is running through South Carolina this year. And I've been on this show before saying that I really, really like what Shane Beamer is doing at South Carolina. I think he's doing a fantastic job up in South Carolina just because – especially when I went to the UJ South Carolina game. You were there as well. You were on the sidelines. Yep. And just watching their sidelines, I sat behind their sidelines. So I was kind of able to read body language.
That was right there on that side.
Yeah, you were sitting
on that side
you were
too.
On the field there as well. So I was kind of I was kind of looking into that just because, like, first year head coach, just kind of see how the players are reacting. All those guys were bought into what he was telling them. The entire coaching staff, never once during that game. And I mean, it was a beatdown. South Carolina really never had a chance in that game, but never did you see any of the players kind of quit or just kind of put their head down or say, like, oh, well, whatever, just kind of moping around.
Right.
They were bought in the whole time. Anything that a coach was saying, there was eye contact. There was guys getting excited on the sidelines. They were glued into what was going on the field. And you could tell that they were happy to be playing for Shane Beamer. And I think that's huge for someone that is in their first year with a football team. So I think he's got that going for him as well. And you could tell by the end of the season, especially in their bowl game, you could tell that those guys were joyous to be playing for Shane Beamer. And now he's got Spencer Rattler from the transfer portal. And then he also brought in Oklahoma's tight end as well. So he's got some other things going for him as well. I think that program is kind of on the up and coming in the East. I think you could start seeing them where they're consistently in the top 3 probably in the SEC East. But to say that they're going to win a national title, say that they're going to win the East this year is a tough ask. It's a huge ask. We're talking about a roster that Kirby Smart has spent the last 6 years building. And he has built it with, like Shane Beamer said last year, they got 1,000 5-stars on their roster. I mean, they're everywhere.
That was the best interview.
By
far.
The
way he did that was so funny. And it was just like, I mean, what do you want us to do? Like, they just have a great team. Sometimes it's the Jimmies and Joes sometimes. Like, they are just – he was like, they're not running new schemes, new things that we haven't seen before. It's just their players are just good.
They're freaking better than us.
We know the stuff that they can do. It's not like they're brand new play designs. It's just the guys performing, on the field are incredible guys. They're 5-stars everywhere. That's what he said. They're everywhere.
Yeah, literally everywhere. And if one goes down, you just plug in another one. Is kind of what he was.
There's another guy waiting. There's another guy just sitting waiting for his turn. That's also a 4 or 5-star.
I think you kind of have to take this also, like we said, for Florida fans. You got to have some patience with this one as well. I mean, South Carolina has been a program that has been on the lower end of the East for quite a while now.
Yeah,
and it's a roster that's going to take some more building. You got to beef it up.
The reason I think this comes and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this. I think this tweet came after Spencer Rattler decided to transfer. It came in December, late December.
Okay, so it was right before UJ played for the national championship.
Yeah, it was right before it was actually right before the first bowl game. I think it was the 31st. Okay. So it was literally the day that they were playing Michigan. I don't know what the time was. I can go back and look. But so I'm pretty sure Spencer Rattler had already decided to go South Carolina. So that's with that in mind. So I think that's what's sparking the comment is they're thinking, hey, we've got an elite quarterback now, which you're saying elite. We'll see how it plays out. He lost his job last year to Caleb Williams, who is a good quarterback as well. But once again, they both left the program they were at. Head coach left there as well. We'll see how he actually plays at South Carolina. They did go out and plug in. So Shane Beamer made some moves immediately in the transfer portal when the season ended and went out and got guys like that. Went out and got the tight end from Oklahoma as well. So that's what they're looking at. Those 2 guys that they got right there aren't going to make you all of a sudden way better than Georgia and saying that the East runs through Columbia, South Carolina next year. That's just you got to be patient. That's just you're getting a little antsy with it when you make comments like that.
Well, especially to say too, like Georgia better win the national championship. So you're basically saying like they have a really good shot at winning the national championship, and then you're going to say a team that's coming off of a national championship is automatically dethroned by a school like South Carolina, who had a average football season last year, probably good to their standards because I mean, like we said, considering what they had going on with their football program, that was probably a good season for them. But still, just make that far of a jump. Again, that's a lot to ask for a second-year head coach. But this is a guy that spent time with Kirby Smart on his football staff. That's probably a reason why you're seeing him dip into the portal the way he did. That's very Kirby Smart-esque to do with the transfer portal. Go and get you a quarterback that can play immediately and get you a tight end to go along with him. That's something that Kirby Smart has done multiple times. So I think South Carolina is in good hands, but maybe in 2025, something like that.
Yeah, you got to give it a couple years. And once again, like you went out and got the quarterback, but that quarterback's not going to instantly change the entire program. There's a lot more that goes into it, which is what we've talked about on the show. I'm not getting into a quarterback conversation here, but I'm just saying it takes more than just the quarterback to win a national championship. So just going and getting that quarterback isn't going to all of a sudden make you the best team in the SEC East when you still have a Georgia coming off of a national championship win at this point. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't work like that. The next one,
we got 2 more.
I don't even know who this person's a fan of. Oh, I guess a Tennessee fan. It's a Tennessee fan. Okay. And this one is funny. Just as funny, I guess, as the last one. It just goes, the 2022 the 2022 SEC championship game is the Tide and the Vols. Tide, I give you. Yeah, they're probably going to be there. I think at this point we assume they're going to be there. But you now think that Tennessee is going to be dethroning Georgia as the SEC East champion.
Look, I got to give Volunteer fans credit because, boy, they have been absolutely disastrous for a long time now. For a long, long, long time now. I mean, they've been the laughing stock of SEC football for a good amount of time as well. And they stay true to their football team. They always pack out Neyland Stadium. Now, they might throw a golf ball or a mustard bottle at you as well if you're there. So there's that. That's some baggage that comes along with them. But, I mean, they stay true to their team. But then again, you say things like that, and it's hard to take you serious when you say things like that as well. Look, we've been on the record saying that we did not expect Tennessee to be as good as they were last year. Tennessee surprised us last year.
They came out, they struggled at first, but then they came out swinging. Their offense showed that they had a lot of firepower. They could score a lot of points. It didn't help when they got to Georgia, though.
Yeah.
Last year. It didn't help. The Georgia just So what's going to be so different this year from last year? We saw how that game played out with Georgia versus Tennessee this year. It wasn't a close game.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if they can continue to run that type of offense and continue to build sustainable success running that offense. Because, it works great against some teams. But then again, when you're playing a defense like Georgia had last year, running a hurry-up offense is great when you're scoring and you're putting together drives because you're instantly...
Yeah, we called this one to a T before that game.
But when you're getting...
Perfectly.
When you're getting 3 and outs, you're also gassing your own defense because you're throwing them out there. And Georgia's not a team that runs a hurry-up offense. They're a team that wants to run 8 or 9 plays, go 75 yards, and take their sweet time with it and pound the rock, throw it a little bit.
Time of possession is a big thing for Georgia.
Yeah, and make it hurt when they score. So... you just gas your own defense at the same time if you're not being successful with it. So if they can find a way to really – and you've kind of seen that also with Ole Miss as well. That's where you've seen them run into some trouble as well. They ran into trouble with that when they played Alabama last year and they were running that hurry-up offense. And it really just did not work at all. And it was kind of their Achilles heel in that game. So if they can kind of find a way to – I don't know the right word for it, but if they can like find a good in-between area for that –
you just got to be like the play style is very successful play style if you do it properly, right? Like, so they can play the exact same way if they get guys out there that are going to be able to consistently do it against teams like Georgia, because that's where at this point, yes, the SEC East runs through Athens, Georgia. That's not up for debate. It's really not. Like, it does. You have to be able to dethrone the national champions in order to make it to the SEC championship game on the East, and so can you do that against a defense like Georgia?
Yeah.
The answer was no last year, right? The answer was very clearly no. And exactly what you said happened. They kept going 3 and out, and all of a sudden it just gasses themselves. They do more damage to themselves than they did to Georgia because Georgia was able to stand up and get those 3 defensive plays in a row to get them off the field.
Yeah.
And so you can be very successful in that. You just got to have the right guys to out there and make those plays. It comes down to quarterback a lot in those. You got to have a quarterback that's going to make the right decisions. He can't have bad possessions because it's going to really hurt you if he does. And they didn't have that guy last year.
All right, so we got one more. This one's just kind of for a laugh. There's not too much to talk about.
This one's just so funny.
We just had to give a shout out to our boys, Barstool Georgia Tech, because boy, did
this one's verified, so they get to have their name called
out. They tweeted a straight banger, which is such a
this look at the year of this one.
This is such a disgrace too to UGA Barstool. The fact that the nerds have a verified Barstool account, but UGA does not. It's such a disgrace. But anyways,
I think if you scroll down, I think they actually commented over.
Yes, they quote tweeted Barstool UGA.
Barstool UGA.
But so this was tweeted on January 5th of 2021. So this is before last season started. This was prior to the UGA championship season. But they tweeted, "Congrats to UGA on the 41st consecutive next year is our year." And then they put a picture with the Georgia championship banner that has national champions 1942 and 1980. And the reason, you better add another year to that banner because, boy, was it Georgia's year.
And the reason they said it is because Barstool Sports for UGA came out and said next season will be the one to remember. People can sleep on us all they want to. Just wait. Unfinished business. So that's what sparked the comment, right? First of all, when you haven't won a national championship since 1990 – and it was a shared title, you don't get to talk about a team that hasn't won it in 40 years because it's been 31 for you. What's the difference at that point? And your program is so bad that it is at least a bare minimum of 10 years before y'all are competitive right now. Like, you aren't even on the brinks of being competitive. So to make a comment about a team that's actually in the limelight of like college football, that's on the verge of being a national championship contender back before the season started, obviously, to make that kind of comment is just like, you don't get to make a comment about the other team when your team hadn't won anything in 31 years and you're that bad currently.
Why does Georgia Tech even bother talking football at this point? Yeah,
they have a good baseball team and they have a decent basketball team.
I like what Dan said. Our guy Dan Kiley said, "Why are you wasting energy on the trade school?" I mean, that's exactly. Why are we wasting our breath on these people? I just thought it was funny.
It's fun, man.
Because it is fun. It is fun to,
we get to laugh. That's why. We get to laugh about it because it's so outlandish. Like, I have a buddy. One of my best friends is a Georgia Tech fan.
Oh, my cousin goes to school there.
So. I have family members. I have a grandfather and 2 uncles that went to Georgia Tech, and so they pull for Tech, and so I mess with them all the time. But literally, one of my best friends is a Georgia Tech fan. But he's even got to the point where he's like, he's like, at this point, Jeff Collins has got to do something like now, soon. He's got to show that he's actually improving, or it's time for him to go. And he's realistic. He messes with me stuff, but he's realistic in the sense of like this team is not good. So why are you going to come out publicly talking trash about a team that is good, that was on the verge of winning a national championship, at this point did win a national championship? So it's really funny to see.
I mean, I don't know, Georgia Tech. You don't really have much going for you. Maybe this year you'll win the chess national championship. I don't even know if that's a thing.
They do have a decent basketball team. They have a good baseball team. They have a really good baseball team. That's top 10 caliber team out there. So they have other sports. Don't talk about football. That's not your sport.
Man, you're ruining my joke, man. Gosh, I was trying to make a
Sorry.
joke.
I got to be realistic too.
Whatever. Anyways. All right, so that's enough of talking season. We will continue that throughout the offseason like we did last year. And
this stands true right now, at least if something doesn't happen, he's got to have like a bowl game like coming up in the next year. Otherwise, at this point, you got to let the guy go.
Yeah. So if you guys see anything on Twitter, Dan, if you see anything on Twitter, shoot us a DM so we can have some content for our talking season content for next week or the up and coming weeks. Again, our girl is carrying this segment on her back.
She sent us so many things
in the comments. And she unloaded the clip in the DMs. I think she sent us 10 within the first minute.
Oh, yeah. Because she had them. That's why we call her the librarian, because she bookmarks everything. It's literally she had them just loaded up, ready to go.
We're going to have to name this segment after her eventually, or give her some type of shout out or compensate her for her efforts, because she's literally doing everything, all the work for us.
We'll bring her on the show and let her read them herself one day.
We got to do something. Just goodness.
Thank you, Sierra.
But, all right. So final segment. It's the one that we started last week, the one that I have come up with. And this time we're doing a completely different
it's not football related. It's just
no
fun.
Sports or anything. This is completely opinionated around your taste buds.
Which
and your
after
preference.
this, by the way, we need to touch base on talking or on the King of the Hill from last week because of stuff that happened, right? Like in the Stafford got a championship and everybody started talking about Stafford and Matt Ryan. So we should comment on it for a second. Just for a second.
I'm going to change my mind. But anyway.
Not going to change my mind either.
So King of the Hill segment, which if you don't know what King of the Hill is the take that you're willing to die on a hill defending. And this time it is who has the best French fry. And there's a lot of things that come into play.
Fast food French fry.
Yeah, we're not talking about sit-down restaurant. Like, we don't care.
Other type of,
this is fast food. You can go through a drive-through, pick you up a sack of French fries if you want to. That's what we're talking about. There's a lot of things that come into play here in regards to my opinion on a French fry. And then also, we're going to start talking some dipping sauces as well, because every French fry needs a good dipping sauce.
Right.
But it also changes the game about which fry do you like. Okay, so we already got people voicing their opinions in the comments. But I think
y'all are gonna like me in a second.
I think there's a big difference in your favorite French fry, but of your favorite fry to dip in a sauce. And I'll get into that as well, and that'll get into my hot take that I talked about earlier. But do you want to start? I already gave mine on Brooks' Twitter space, so we'll let Jeremiah.
I'll start, and it's funny because this is the topic that we came on, and we go, hey, maybe we'll disagree on something.
Yeah.
And then I was sitting here listening to the Twitter space today that I was going to join, but then the timing of it when Brooks was able to do it today, I wasn't able to get on. And as soon as Jonathan said his, I said, dadgummit, we're not going to disagree again. And it is. And the comments are actually saying the same thing, which shows that I think it's not very outlandish opinion or something like that.
Maybe
apparently it's a good opinion. Arby's. Arby's fries, the curly fries, man. There's so many reasons that they're good. One, as a kid, I remember just the curly fry was cool. Everybody, looked at it and was like, it was a cool fry. And so you got kind of excited just for that alone. But as like an adult looking at it and the taste of it, it's elite. It's always going to have consistent seasoning on it because it's baked. It's like it's fried into it, so it's not added afterwards. Like the seasoning of the fry is just the fry itself, and so it's elite. It's always perfect. It tastes amazing. You got that nice crispy fry.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good.
And like it is so satisfying to get your cup of fries or whatever it is, like your little container of fries. And there's that one curly
like
fry
this long.
that's like longer than your hand,
Yeah.
and you just get to pull it out of the container like this. Oh, it is the best. Curly fries are so good all together, and Arby's has it figured out.
They do.
Arby's all together, I think, is slept on to begin with, but that's a whole other conversation.
You're not wrong. Though.
They have great food to begin with, and if you hate on Arby's, then you need to grow up because maturing is realizing that Arby's is a good fast food place. So. Again, we agreed on even fast food fries. I started this segment hoping that it would kind of spark some disagreement between me and Jeremiah, but we've really just come to find that we just agree on everything, and we're basically the same person doing the show together, which is probably why it works so well together.
We get along. We don't argue very often. The very few times have we ever argued.
But this is where my hot take comes in.
All right,
and I want you, and Ben and Dan in the comments are kind of going on the part where I come into play. So dipping your fries in a sauce. And Chick-fil-A, I think, is the best fry that goes with a dipping sauce, but it's not for what they're saying. You know, they're saying that they're bland or that they don't taste good, so you have to have a dipping sauce with them.
I will say I disagree with that, too. If they're salted the right way, I think they're still good fries.
Yeah.
And if they're hot, they do have to be hot.
They're not the best, but they're still pretty solid.
Good fries.
But the reason why Chick-fil-A has the best dipping fry, and I got into this on the Twitter space, and Brooks called me out for it, saying that is like the most specific anybody has gotten into talking about a French fry. But the fact that you have grooves in your fry that you can lather the sauce onto, the sauce gets into it holds the sauce for you. You can get a good base of your sauce on that fry. That's what makes it really, really good. And the fact that Chick-fil-A has some really, really good sauces to go along with it as well. But the only problem that I have with Chick-fil-A and their fries and their dipping sauces is the containers are too small for it. Because, you know, some of their waffle fries are pretty big, and you got to kind of scrunch it up and put it in there. And then you really don't get to lather your fry with their dipping sauce. And so that's kind of where I have an issue about it. But so
you're using it. This is where we might disagree.
Okay.
I might have found something that we could disagree on. Because your problem is you're getting the wrong dipping sauce there. And there's other ones that are good and that are really close to the same level.
If you say what I think you're about to say,
you know what I'm about to say, and so he's probably about to disagree with me. Honey roasted barbecue sauce is that's my favorite sauce at Chick-fil-A. So you literally can take it out of the package and then you don't have to worry about that. Then you can
not judge me for saying lather. That is a proper word use for this. Yes, you lather your fry in sauce. I don't care what you say.
He's out here putting sunscreen on his on his fry.
Whatever works, man. But okay, I'll tell you what my favorite sauce at Chick-fil-A is,
right.
And you can call me like prissy, whatever. I don't care. And
like Polynesian.
Someone else put me on this, and I have never gone back since. No, it's not Polynesian.
Okay,
it is not even probably considered a dipping sauce at Chick-fil-A. It is the avocado lime ranch.
All right. You're not wrong, actually. I agree with that.
Best sauce at Chick-fil-A, hands down.
I always forget they have that.
You can have your Chick-fil-A sauce. You can have your Polynesian. I love a good honey roasted
barbecue.
Yeah,
that stuff is so good.
I love that one too. That's a good one. But avocado lime ranch, I'm telling you, if you haven't had it, it is a game changer. It will change your life. I don't care. Don't knock it until you try it.
It's a salad dressing, actually.
You
get that with the salad.
And that's what
why
makes
it's
it better
considered.
too.
Yeah.
Because it comes in a big packet. So you have plenty to use for all of your fries. Because all you do, like when you say like, can I get some sauce with my fries? Or like, what sauce do you want? They put, they just give you like 2 sauces. Okay, because she whatever. I'm not getting into that. We can have that discussion later. I don't care.
Oh, shit.
But,
taking a bath with a French fry. These are funny.
Like Chick-fil-A as an entirety, it has a lot of good sauces. Like you really can't go wrong with any of them. I think all together they have really good sauces. But I'm telling you, avocado lime ranch for me is the one that I get.
Because you're right, it is. It's a salad dressing. You can get that with salad, but if you can get that separately, and it is incredible. If you haven't tried it, it is something you've got to try. And I'll take it to the outside of the honey roasted barbecue being my main sauce to go for. Yes, Ben, that is a bot. They comment.
Dean is a bot. Thank you.
Not Dean, yes. But the one above that is a bot. Yeah. So now I got kind of thrown off. But my other thing that I dip fries, and no matter where I go or other things like that, if I'm at certain restaurants, I'll get the sauce, at different places, right? So like over there, I'll go get the honey roasted barbecue. or even, the avocado ranch. But just in general, dipping your fry in ranch is an elite sauce.
If you're eating wings and you get ranch as a side for your dipping sauce, that's the best. Any wing place that has a ranch, that's the best place to dip your fries in. Oh, it is so good. Because
what you do is think about I'm going to use Zaxby's as a term because actually I ate Zaxby's today and I got this. So you get like ranch as your dipping sauce with it, right? So you take the wing and then you dip the wing into the ranch, right? And then you're going with the fry later and you're going into that same ranch. Now it has the hot sauce or whatever you've got on it in the ranch.
Yes.
That is an elite combo right there as well. But ranch in general. Ranch is probably the most. This could be its own talking, or its own King of the Hill segment on just sauces alone. Because ranch is probably the most elite out there because it is, in my opinion, because it is the most versatile thing out there. Like you can eat it on a salad, you can eat it with fries, you can eat it on pizza, you can eat it with chicken, celery,
anything,
vegetables, whatever. It can literally go with everything.
Maybe next week what we need to do is the 5 sauces one. And if you don't know what that is, it's if you could pick any 5 sauces to have eternally on your 5 fingers for the rest of your life,
we'll do that.
What 5 sauces would you pick? Maybe we'll say that for next week. I think we can.
If ranch is not in your 5, you're ridiculous because once again, it can work for everything.
Ranch is a tough one to beat. I will address this one. Dan asked about best onion rings. I honestly don't get onion rings too often, but I will say there is one place that I do get onion rings, and it's a local joint to my hometown. But it's called Nichols Diner. Their onion rings are unmatched. I love their onion rings. That's one of the few places that I'll actually get onion rings. Typically, if I can get fries, I get fries. But I usually get their onion rings because they are good. And sometimes, it's good to have a switch up and get some onion rings. But
Dan, you can say it's flavored mayonnaise all you want. It doesn't change that it's elite. Like that's great. It is still.
Forgot about varsity. They stripped varsity out of Athens.
It's kind of back, dude.
It is.
But
it's not
they're going to build
in
one.
Athens. It's kind of on the outskirts of
Athens.
Athens.
It's going to be like F Bridge, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's
still, there's no varsity in Athens right now, so we're kind of getting cheated out of that. But varsity does have good onion rings. I forgot about
varsity.
Them.
Yeah. So I'll say that my thing with onion rings, I do like the onion rings actually at Zaxby's are pretty good. But it's
didn't even know they had onion rings.
They do, and they are pretty good. My thing with onion rings is the ratio of like the batter to the onion itself. I hate when I go and there's just like a massive piece of onion. I like the skinnier onion with the
you gotta
batter
have a
around
good
it.
crunch.
Yeah,
with the
you
little
can't
onion.
have this massive amount of onion. Like some of them will be like an inch or half-inch thick piece of onion, and you just might as well take a bite out of an onion. It's awful. It is awful. I can't do it.
Lord. Well, goodness, I'm going to get hungry from talking about all this food. But I think.
Oh, speaking of hungry, did you go get your sweet tea today?
No. Okay, so apparently I'm
Harrison,
missing
if you're
out
listening,
on Bojangles sweet tea.
If you're listening, he didn't do it, man.
Apparently, I'm missing out on Bojangles sweet tea, so I guess I need to go get me a cup of Bojangles sweet tea
and
because it's
cookout. That was what he was told today. He had to go try.
I have a mission to accomplish from Harrison, our guy, one of our friends that we've gotten to know. Said I got to go to Cookout and Bojangles and get some sweet tea. So maybe that'll be something that I talk about and analyze next week on our King of the Hill discussion. But that is going to conclude this week's episode. A lot of topics covered.
Get
in
the
this.
gallon.
Oh Lord,
that's what we should. Oh, I won't spoil it on here, but we should get a gallon of this tea. And I've got an idea.
Are we going to become one of those podcasts
yes, we
are.
Going
to bring in like 5 jugs of sweet tea and we're going to taste test them? Is that what
we're about to do? Oh, we're about to do it.
Maybe for one episode we could kind of do that.
That'd be fun.
Food
mix
taste
it into
test.
the middle of the episode.
Yeah. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this episode. There's a lot of variety in this episode. We went from talking about Arch Manning to then talking about how ranch is one of the most elite sauces in the game. So there's that. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you will, please follow us on Twitter, which we have dropped down below right there, Dogs Daily POD. Follow us on Facebook as well. Subscribe to us on YouTube if you have not. Like the video as well if you can. We really appreciate you guys from joining in, staying with us through the whole entire thing. If you did, we went at it for a long time. We covered a lot of things. We threw a lot of information at you, but you're either elite or you're not, and you are elite for sticking around for this long if you did. So we appreciate you guys. And Jeremiah, you can close us out.
As always, guys, we do appreciate it. Like he said and everything like that, we're a little over a year into all of this, and it's getting more and more fun as we go. Like we said earlier, Jonathan and I have gotten really close. We get along really well, and it just kind of helps.
On anything.
We can't disagree on even the sauces.
I will find that topic.
It's going to happen one day. But it's been fun, and we really appreciate all of the engagement that we've had in the past few weeks on there. It's made it even more fun for us. We've had our guy Harrison, we've had Dan, Dean, and Morgan, and all of you guys, and Ben today. We appreciate all of the comments and
makes
stuff.
Makes it more fun for us, and looks like it makes it more fun for you guys too. When you guys are in the comment section, we get to engage with you guys, and you guys help create content. We wouldn't have even touched onion rings if Dan had even thrown it in the comment section. And
when we start pulling up gallons of sweet tea, Dan's got that too. So
tune in next week, maybe.
All of that going on for us. But as always, we appreciate you guys. Love you guys. Keep it classy in the Classic City. We will catch you guys next week.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Dogs Daily on Sports Illustrated. Take a second to subscribe, rate, review, and share with your friends and family. Feel free to reach out to the Dogs Daily crew on Twitter with any topics you'd like discussed. You can reach out to Jeremiah at Jeremiah_Stod7, to Kyle at DK Fubderberg, and Jonathan at 22_Jman. Check back next week for a brand new episode. In the meantime, go Dogs!